I am paging Dr. Shonda.
I am the Dr. Shonda.
And I'm a licensed clinical psychologist.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Paging Dr. Shonda podcast, all things related to the Black culture.
The doctor in front of your name.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Shonda, and you are watching the Paging Dr. Shonda show, or you could be listening to the podcast wherever you're listening to the podcast audio version. I am here with a very special guest. We have Mr. Ron Daise back here at the Paging Dr. Shonda show, who is a legend. So, Mr. Ron, would you mind introducing yourself?
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. My name is Ron Daise. Many know me as Mr. Ron from TV's award-winning Gullah Gullah Island, a show of the 1990s. I am a native of St. Helena Island, South Carolina, one of the states, one of the 4 states that's now a part of the federal Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor. And I am a former chairman of the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor Commission. For the past, I retired from Brook Green Gardens as Vice President for Creative Education in 2022. And for 18 years, I worked there, and part of my work was introducing Gullah Geechee culture and heritage to the hundreds of thousands of guests who visit this premier sculpture gardens in our country. And there are some permanent outdoor exhibits and continuing programs about Gullah Geechee culture and heritage that guests can enjoy while going there.
That is amazing. And you and Miss Natalie are in the African American Museum in...
Yes, Miss Natalie Daise, Miss Natalie from TV's Gullah Gullah Island, and I are husband and wife.
Yep.
And there is an exhibit, or there are several exhibits about our work at the International African American Museum in Charleston, South Carolina.
That is amazing. That is so amazing. I'm so happy to have you back at the show because the last show I learned so much about Gullah Geechee culture, and a lot of listeners, a lot of the viewers on the show learned a lot as well. And I know that is your passion to talk about it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. I love this. Okay. Well, so we're going to hop right into it. I'm wondering if you can kind of like tell us a bit about how growing up in St. Helena amongst Gullah Geechee culture, how did that influence you to create Gullah Gullah Island? And what was that like?
Well, my wife and I were the stars as well as cultural consultants for Gullah Gullah Island. We did not create it. It was not our idea, but the idea was pitched to us to serve as performers by a woman who had come down with, soon after Gloria Naylor, novelist, had written Mama Day, which was based on a fictional Gullah community, very much like Dafusky Island in South Carolina. After the publication of that book, she bought a home on St. Helena Island, and we became friends. Mama Day was to be was being optioned for a Disney movie for which Lawrence Fishburne was to star in and direct. He, the woman who's to be the executive producer of the Mama Day Disney film, came to Beaufort County to scout sites. And my wife and I were invited to this dinner party on the last day of their visit, the last evening. And Maria Perez, who was to have been the executive producer of that production, informed us that she and her business partner, Kathleen Minton of Perez Minton Productions in New York City, had been working on a TV program idea, a multi-cultural programming idea. And this was her first time visiting a Gullah community. Perhaps it could be about some magical Gullah community. She herself is Puerto Rican. And we said, sure, but we didn't think much might happen to it. But as promised, when she returned to New York, she spoke with Kathleen Minton, and they began to communicate with us to get ideas about what this children program could be. The program itself was very much centered on our...
The doctor in front of your name. the doctor in front of your name.
Our lives, our own personal lives. I'm a former newspaper reporter. Natalie loves doing art. So the children who came to the Gullah Gullah Island community engaged with us singing with families and learning about the real, authentic Gullah community that I grew up in.
That is amazing. And also, I'm going to add that you baked on the show and you also bake in real life.
I really do.
You really do.
Those big fat biscuits was one of the songs from the first season. That's because when the creative team came to visit us, they came and they just they visited our home community. They followed us around for about 3 days to a week, and that was one of the things they saw because I baked biscuits on Sunday mornings for my family. And I do indeed make pound cakes. Mr. Ron's Gullahlicious pound cakes are available on Etsy.com.
I'm just over here reminiscing about the Mr. Ron's Gullahlicious pound cake that I had on New Year's, and I think I had another one in August sometime. But I ordered 2 pound cakes.
Uh-huh.
They were worth it.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, like I said, both you, Mr. Ron, and Miss Natalie, you all are just amazing and true legends to millennials, especially because I literally I get comments every day on that YouTube video that we did in my on audio podcast as well. But even today, somebody commented they had no clue that we were going to be recording together, but they said, "Oh my goodness, I'm watching this video with my son who is a millennial and they grew up on this show. This is amazing." And it's just amazing. Just watch how you all have continued to just influence the culture.
Thank you. That's part of one of the exhibits at the IAM, the International African American Museum, that the show Gullah Gullah Island raised awareness of Gullah, now known as Gullah Geechee culture, around the world. And we each, Natalie and I, received comments from many people on a regular basis saying how seeing us on this program shaped their childhoods.
Yes.
They had not seen people who looked like themselves. They had not seen people who spoke like themselves before. And it raised a deep interest in them that they pursued, that they should pursue the avenues of work that many of them are now engaged in.
And we can thank y'all for that. Like, you all are cultural influencers. And speaking of cultural influence, absolutely. I wanted to hop into the recent work that you had regarding raptors in the rice lands, because I have my copy. Copy. And so I wanted to hop into what motivated you to write this book.
Well, this will be, I believe, my 7th book. I've had historical documentation. My very first one, Reminiscences of Sea Island Heritage, Legacy of Freedmen on St. Helena Island. And there have been children's books, as well as Gullah Branch's West African Roots, where I tell it that was published 21 years after Reminiscences as a sequel, more or less, because of my 2 visits to Ghana and to Sierra Leone, West Africa, where I saw these walking before me, these connections with my Gullah Geechee heritage that I had read about and heard about. But we come from West Africans, and in our speechways, our beliefs, our cultural practices, and our language, those connections were just in front of me on a regular basis. And with raptors in the rice lands, many of those things that I wrote about in these these documentations of Gullah Geechee heritage, or that I spoke about in the children's books that I've written, all find themselves in this historical nonfiction novel. It's amazing. It's based on a fictional community of Georgetown, South Carolina. Now, Georgetown County is the place where half of the country's rice was produced during the 17 and 1800s. This was because the vast number of enslaved Africans who were brought here because of their specific skills and knowledge of rice production. There were over 45,000 acres of rice fields in Georgetown County. And this book, Raptors in the Rice Lands, is conveyed in 4 acts and with chapter names that follow the production stages of Carolina gold rice. It's a 21st century fictional community, and in it, a story unfolds revealing family secrets and conflicts that challenge cultural beliefs. With big-hearted intention, newlyweds Florence and Chadwick Wineglass attempt to promote economic legacy, but their unconscious motives often ensnare those that they assist. The Wineglasses become raptor-like in their generosity at a moment when other community members' intentions also prove to be menacing. They want to be helpful, but they find out no, something is a bit twisted. They find out that there are other community members who likewise have these intentions of being big-hearted and generous, but when you look a bit deeper, you'll find, there's something that perhaps should change. So I think that it's a story that readers will find interesting.
Absolutely. It sounds interesting. And I'm even reading some of the praise for the Raptors and the Ricelands in the first page. And it literally says, Mr. Ron Daise's story offers a much needed reminder of the voices of the Gullah Geechee ancestors that propel modern intimacy and pride of the Gullah Geechee in their land, culture, heritage, and language. And even when thinking about that, and it's just so many people just writing about your praises in this book, even thinking about that, I'm wondering, like, highlighting the importance of the heritage and the dialect of the individuals of the Gullah Geechee culture. I wonder, like, how important was that for you?
Well, stories are important.
Yeah.
Memories from childhood, memories that or different family events and experiences that may have been passed down to you as a child. At some point, as you mature, you may find an interest and find what was it that grandma or granddad was speaking about, and you will begin to see those connections with your own personal direction, things that you are doing, or ways that when you begin your own family, you may wish to continue or try to discontinue because it wasn't beneficial for your family member whose story you remembered. So there are all these stories within this book. As I said, it's a fictional community, but one thing that I have heard from a number of persons who have read advanced copies is that these people are real. They know them. They know them from their personal lives or from their communities. So that speaks to me that I help to bring this truth to.
Yes, and even as I'm hearing you say this, it's causing me to reflect on some thoughts that I had over the weekend about the importance of, especially individuals of the African diaspora, us writing our stories down, because that is how we pass that down to the next generation. I was recalling, I always heard my grandparents talk about how they migrated from North Carolina to Delaware and like the Northeast. But it never really resonated with me. Like, okay, you all were a part of the Great Migration, until over the weekend I saw a movie about it. And I'm like, wow, this is what y'all were experiencing. And I've never kind of like really asked my grandparents about this until, over the weekend I was motivated to watch something related to it. So I'm like, we have to write these things down so that our children.
There are numerous people, say from South Carolina or Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, who moved north or elsewhere. And one of the things that their ancestors will tell you that wherever they went, people would always wonder why they spoke the way they did, or
Yeah.
why they ate a lot of rice, more so than other African Americans. And it's becoming known to many. It's because of their Gullah Geechee heritage from their birthplaces. And that Gullah heritage or Gullah Geechee heritage is rooted in West African beliefs and practices,
Mm.
which are
And
shared with numerous
yeah,
people around the globe.
absolutely. And when we think about this, it really brings out like the interconnectedness of individuals
Yes,
of the African diaspora overall. And it
yes,
sounds like you're highlighting this in your book.
it did. The main characters, the wine glasses, take a honeymoon to Jamaica. They are native Georgetonians. They come from a community in this fictional community known as Mossaville. But while they're in Jamaica, they see scenes that are very much like their hometown of Georgetown, with the
Mhm.
people, with baskets on their heads and making different products. And even the speech way of the Jamaicans, they identify with. And they see a monument of Marcus Garvey. And they are intrigued by it because the Jamaicans are honoring this important historical figure, and they want to promote economic legacy in their home community.
Yeah. Wow, that is amazing, and I love how you talked about how the chapters in the book highlight the
Mhm.
different um, processes of like the growth of rice. Is that what
Yes,
you said?
of
Okay?
Carolina Gold Rice. That's right.
Yes. Okay. Can you walk us through like another piece of that, like the I'm seeing the planting, the growing, the harvesting. What was that like, bringing those chapters to life and reflecting that into the Gullah
Well,
Geechee?
taking the different characters,
Yeah.
making sure that activities that they engaged in
Mhm.
fit within the names of those particular seasons of rice growth, planting, harvesting, growing, harvesting, and threshing and milling. I think readers will be able to look back and see that they fit within those time frames of rice production. Now, while I was writing this book, I was very much interested with This Is Us, the TV series,
Mhm.
because I found that so magical, because it was not a linear story. You would be here in the present, and then you would have some segment of an episode in the future, or then back in the past, and then you get to another episode and it's the future, and it goes back to the past, or even furthermore in the future. So that's how this book is laid out. It's not linear at all, but there are time signatures that let you know how these characters are living and how they relate from time period to time period.
And speaking of the characters, I'm wondering which character would you say you relate to the most, Mr. Ron?
Well, I like to say I relate to all of them because there were all these voices going through my head,
Love that.
making changes. No, you can't. I can't say that. Someone else has to say that.
Mm.
This is the way that I would follow up with whatever the circumstance may be. And there, as I said, there are although the surnames of the surnames are Georgetonian, but the characters sometimes are based on people from my Saint Helenian childhood, but it's not named. They are because, and that's because one of the reasons while serving on the Gullah Geechee Cultural Heritage Corridor,
You got the doctor in front of your name.
Nyam. It comes from a West African word. I don't remember which specific language, but it means to eat. You nyam 'em up.
Okay.
And there is I'm trying to look for a passage where they are eating a dinner. A family is eating a dinner, but they nyam the dinner. And then because of the religious practices, there's usually, it would end with a prayer. And there is a prayer that was used, and I'm not finding it as quickly as I would like, but in that way, nyam 'em up. And the food of Gullah Geechee people so good, good. It make your belly want for dance. It make you happy.
I love that. Okay, so nyam is
Yeah.
nyam. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All
And
right.
in one of I think with Mr. Ron's Gullah'licious pound cakes, and either I had made an announcement or it was written, and I got comments from people in Jamaica that were so, because they use the word yam, meaning it's one of those connections
Wow.
within the African diaspora.
Well, I tell you, Mr. Ron, you make me really want to visit South Carolina and everywhere else where the Gullah Geechee people are there and using the dialect, because it's so interesting how we're all connected. It's like the African diaspora, it just makes you proud to be Black, honestly.
Yes. I would like to say, if anyone visits Myrtle Beach, make sure they visit Brook Green Gardens. That's where I was formerly employed. And if they would take a ride on the Creek Excursion, it's a boat ride that takes guests out in the rivers and creeks of the former plantations of what is now Brook Green Gardens, and they learn about the production stages of Carolina gold rice, which was grown on Brook Green Plantation. And that's information that I used in outlining this book. So they will learn a lot, and how the Africans, how their work made the production of Carolina gold so profitable that the wealth of the planters rivaled the wealth of European monarchs, kings, and queens.
Wow. And it really just makes us think about how resilient we are as a people. Like, just I definitely appreciated your time, Mr. Ron. Is there anything else we should know about the book, or how to buy it, or if you're doing
Sure. Well, the book is being released by publishers Belle Isle Books on April 30th. April 30th is the release date. But pre-orders can be made through Amazon.com as well as BarnesandNoble.com. It's available. It will be available in hardback, paperback, also in ebook, and soon after the release of the print copies, an audio book will be available, and I will be narrating it.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, I'm a huge fan of all the work that you and Miss Natalie do. So I can't wait to continue to support all of your endeavors. And would you mind reminding us of where we can also buy your cakes?
The cakes are at www.etsy.com/shop/Gullah'licious Cakes. Just go to the Etsy shop, look up Gullah'licious Cakes.
And you won't be disappointed. I promise y'all. I promise you will not be disappointed. Mr. Ron, it's always a pleasure for you coming. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And to the viewers out there, make sure that you all grab your copies of Raptors in the Rice Land, which is available on April 30th, and you can pre-order them like right now. So make sure you do that. And you guys come back next week, and don't forget, you have the power to create the emotions that you want to experience. God bless.
The doctor in front of your name.